Hi boys and girls, I'm Rosemary, and today I'm going to be showing you how to paint this cute little ghost for Halloween. You should all have picked up kits at the library, and in your kits you will have your ceramic piece, you'll have your brushes, and the strip of paints that I put together for you. Now, if you have other paints, you can choose to do this in any colors that you would like. I am going to try to follow this color scheme because that's what I believe I gave you. And it's a pretty simple piece, but I'll walk you through a couple of little techniques that I did on it to make it a little bit more interesting for you. So I want you to start with your larger of the two brushes, and you paint the white on the entire body. And then we're going to go back in and put the green in the crevices. Now you can use purple in the crevices or the green, but I'll show you how to do that. But first let's start with the white and paint the entire ghost in the white. Now I want you to smooth your paint out. Pull it out back and forth in all different directions until it's nice and smooth. Because if you put it on and you glob it on and you leave it very wet, it won't dry, and then you won't be able to do the shading and the other detail. I put that on so thin that the colors are already dry, almost dry to the touch. All right, so don't dip for more paint until you pull that first load that's in your brush. You pull it out, okay? Because you see how thick this is here. Well, I want to pull that out. And that's how you allow it to dry faster, by pulling it as far as it will go. Okay? And if you get it on some of the other areas, like his hands or his gloves or whatever they are, or a little on the hat, the other colors will cover it. Sometimes it takes a couple of coats, but it will cover eventually. These are water-based acrylic paints. For your parents, it's non-toxic, so everything is safe to use. And you could work, I have a little palette that I'm using, but you can work right out of the strips that I gave you with the paints in them, so you really don't need to put your colors out on a palette. And if you don't have a palette like I have, I use this palette. You can always use a piece of foil and put your colors out on a piece of foil. But like I said, you don't have to. Your colors are in that little strip with the paints in it. Sometimes they're a little hard to open, so have one of your parents help you open it. All right, so I'm going to continue to go around and paint the entire body. And even the detail on the sleeves, I'm going right over it, and like I said, we'll go back in and we'll put the detail in later. Try to stay away from his hands and the pumpkin, but if you get a little on, we will go over it. So nice and simple, easy piece, cute little piece for Halloween. Nice and smooth. So you see, I pull it out. I keep pulling it out. I go in one direction, then I go in the other direction and cross it, and then go back, and I just keep working it till it's nice and smooth. There you go. You shouldn't be rushing it. Have patience. Take your time doing it. You're supposed to enjoy this and not rush through it. And any spot that looks like it's still a little yellow as compared to the white paint that you're putting on, that's an uncovered area. So when you finish, go back and double check. Like I came around this corner here and I could see there's still some yellow and I didn't get that area done. So I go back in and I put a little more paint on it. You could also use your little brush to get close if you can't do it with the bigger brush. Okay, so now I'm back here. I just have to finish up the back, and you can take your time. I mean, I work faster. I've been doing this for a very long time, so I work a little fast, but you can stop the video and catch up and then put it back on again. And you should always do the bottoms of your pieces. I was taught once a long time ago, the piece is never completed unless the bottoms are painted. Okay, I just have to do his sleeve. Try not to get it on his hand. If it's easier just to paint the hand in the white, do it and then put the color over it, the green or the purple right over it. It probably will take 2 coats. See, the bisque is what this is called. This is called ceramic bisque. When it's fired one time like this, it's called bisque. And the bisque is porous, which means it absorbs the paint. But once you put the white on it, and you put a color over it, it's not absorbing, the second color is not absorbing as much anymore because you have the white sealing it, or your first coat sealing it. So that's why I tell you to try to avoid the areas that you're putting other colors on. But if you get it on there, eventually it will cover with a couple of coats. Okay, now we're going to wash that brush out. I think I got it all coated. Double check it. Okay, so when you wash your brush, never bang your brushes in the bottom of a bowl. Swish it back and forth. Dry it. Very important to dry it on the towel. I do it twice to get that color out. And dry it on the towel. And always try to keep the shape of your brush. You have a square brush, so you dry it flat. Don't bang brushes, especially your pointy brushes. If you bang them, they're going to open and spread open. So keep them in the shape that they are, and they'll last a long time. So while that's drying, and before we go back and do the green, I'm going to do the purple. So I'm going to do purple on the hat. If you have other colors in that strip, you can use whatever color that you want to. You can do a green hat and purple in the crevices. So it's your choice. And if you have any other acrylic, water-based acrylics at home, you can choose to do whatever colors that you would like. It doesn't have to be my colors that I did. Okay? But again, very little paint in the brush, and I'm starting at the top part of the hat. I think I'm going to use the little brush to do where it meets the white underneath the hat. Okay, but first I'm going to do the top part. Pretty color purple, right? A little different than the one I did there. I did this sample a long time ago, so it might not be exact, but it gives you the idea. Okay, got that part done, so now I'm going to do the top of the brim. Going a little bit underneath it. The dots are going to be the last thing that we do, and you do them with the back end of the brush. And I say the last thing because dots, when you put them on with the back end of the brush, the color stays wet for a long time. So if you're working on it and you get your hands in it, you're going to smear the dots, and I've done it many times. So I don't want you to smear the dots. So we'll do the dots last. That'll be the last thing that we do. I just need a little bit more of the purple. And now I'm going to put my brush in the water, and like I said, swish it around. Take it out of the water. I don't leave my brushes laying in the water because they misshape according to the way they're leaning. And now I'm using the smaller brush. And edging carefully. Okay, so start here, and then flatten your brush and scoop it around. You see what I'm doing? Flatten your brush. When I first load my brush, I don't start right at the edge because it might have too much paint in the brush. So I work my way to the edge, and then I scoop it around. Flatten out the hairs of the brush. And then go where it meets the white. And you get a pretty decent edge on there. See the edge I got on there? Just by flattening the brush and scooping it around. If that makes sense. Okay, then I'm going to go back and just make sure that I have all the spots covered. If you think you need a second coat, you can give it a second coat. This one looks like it covered pretty well, so I'm not going to do a second coat. Okay, and now I'm going to paint the pumpkin. So wash the brush out, dry it on the paper towel. Very important to dry your brushes in between coats. And you might have a little bit different orange than I have here, but any orange will do. Put a little orange on the pumpkin. And again, very carefully, start out away from the edge, and then when you have less in the brush, scoop it. I call it scoop it because I press down on the hairs of the brush and pull it along the edge where it meets the other colors. So I start a little bit away from those colors. And then just flatten the brush and bring it a little closer when you have a little less in the brush. Okay. That shouldn't take long to do. Just go back and make sure you have nice edges. And if you've gone out of the lines, Don't try to touch it up now while it's wet. Go on to something else and then you can go back and touch it up. And I don't happen to have brown here right now, but if I gave you brown in that strip or green, you could use the green. I'm going to use the green. I'll use the green on the stem. That might be what I gave you also. Let's put a little bit of green and we'll start doing the green on the crevices of the ghost. So, first I'm going to do the stem. I'm going to do it in the green. And we have to do his gloves in the green. So we'll do the stem and his gloves. Very carefully. Okay, so there's the little, turn it around so you can see it. The little stem in the green. And now I'm going to be doing the gloves in the green. So that's a little more tricky because he's got pointy fingers. So put the paint in the brush, start at the tip and press down and pull it toward his, you can't see what I'm doing, toward his wrist. So I hope you could see this. So we're going to press down from the finger and pull it in to the center. Load again, each finger, press down and pull in. You do that with your round brush. Press down and pull in. We have 5 fingers. I'm going to forget his thumb over here. Okay, and it gives you a pretty decent hand. I didn't finish the back part of it yet, but if you go with load your brush with a little bit of paint just at the tip. You don't need to scoop up paint and use a lot of paint in your brush. And you just put it down at the tip of his finger and pull into the center. And that gives you the shape of his fingers. Now I'm going to do the part that's closest to the sleeve of his robe or his body or whatever it is. He's a ghost, I guess, it's supposed to be his body, but if it's a child dressed up for Halloween, it's a costume. Okay, and if you think you want to get a little closer with the fingers, you go back and you just edge them a little bit better. And I thought that really did a pretty decent job putting it on that way. So we'll do the same thing with this one. Now on this one, on this side, he only has 3 fingers showing because it's in the sleeve of his robe. So, yeah, he has like 2 full fingers and 1/2 of one showing. Very gently, and it's very important not to put too much paint in the brush, because if you put too much paint in the brush, when you have a small area like this, you have nowhere to spread it. So when you put it on the brush and you try to even it out, where are you going to pull it to? You don't want to pull it onto his white part, so you want very, very little paint in the brush. See how little paint I'm putting in the brush? Never scoop up your paint and put a lot of paint in your brush. Okay? So now for his crevices, I'm going to take the green and I'm going to try to just do some lines in the crevices of his robe. And I'm doing that with this brush. See that? Okay. I'm going to do it around his mouth. Now, if you can't, I mean, I know this is kind of a little more tricky to do. If you have trouble doing these fine lines, put the green in there. Let it dry very well and put a coat of the white over it. It blends it. It won't get rid of all the green. It'll just make it lighter. So if it's a little messy, it won't look as messy. But if you're very gentle on the brush, you can get that green in there. See that? I'm not even adding water to it. Sometimes I put a dot of water in the brush, but I don't want to tell you to do that because I'm afraid that the paint will run. Water in the mixed in with the paint in your brush will sometimes make the paints run if you have too much of it. So you have to know how to control that. Okay, let's see what else where we have it. And some of these little crevices here. Just outlining these little scrolls. I'll show you what I'm doing in a second. It's a little hard to do it while it's facing the camera. See the little scrolls I just did on his sleeves? Okay, and one there. And where else can we do? And I actually have it outlining this other sleeve also, so I'm going to put some down here. It just gives a little depth to the piece. See, I put a little bit underneath here also, and then in those grooves. And then you should do the same thing in the back. You have grooves down his arms here. I'm going to do it on that groove. See that? One scoop. Scoop almost all the way up. Okay, there you go. So you could put the green wherever you'd like. There's little crevices around here, around the pumpkin. You can accent the top of the pumpkin with nothing in the brush, very, very little paint in the brush. You could accent a little bit of green on the top of the pumpkin, just to give it some highlights. So what I did there, I just put a little bit of green on the top of the pumpkin, very little, just to give it a little accent. Blend it with my finger, so there's not too much. Okay. All right, I think that we have that kind of done. So now the boo. If you have trouble, if you don't want to do the boo, you don't have to. If you have trouble, what you can do is take a pencil. Let me grab a pencil. I have one right here somewhere. Here we go. You can take a pencil and you can draw or write whatever you want. I put boo, so I'm going to stick to that here. Very lightly with the pencil. Okay, I put boo on there very lightly with the pencil. Now, if you have a hard time with doing lines like that, I'm going to show you what to do. I'm going to take the back end of your brush, and we could accent the lettering with the back end of the brush, okay? So I'm using the bigger brush because it has the smaller handle, believe it or not. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to do dots on the B. I'm going to follow the lines that I did going around. I'll show you in a second. Okay, see what I'm doing here? I'm outlining instead of with the brush, because that's a little more difficult to do. I'm outlining it with the back of the brush. You have to dip like every 3 times, every 3 dots. You'll see the dots get smaller and smaller. Okay, see what I did? So this way you don't have to actually draw it like I did on this one. If you're comfortable doing this, go right ahead and do it. But if you're not comfortable, I thought this would be a simpler way of doing it. We'll do the circles, the 2 O's the same way. You notice I keep dipping. I don't try to go all the way around because the dots get smaller and smaller as you go around. Okay, there's the O, one of the O's. And you could also put I's inside that O, but we won't do that. I'm not going to do that. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. See how many dots go around. 4, 5. See, I'm working from the cap of the bottle of paint because I don't want to pour out a lot of paint, so it gives me just enough in my brush. Okay? Cute, right? Okay, so at the same time, you can do the dots on the hat. I'm going to touch up my purple a little bit. I see some spots that I missed. I'll go back and touch them up before I do the dots. Oh, now you see what I did? This is what I should tell you. This is what happens when you do dots. You have to really, really, really let them dry. See, I did that purposely so that you could see. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a little bit of water on a paper towel, and I'm going to take it all off. This is a good way to show you how to fix something. And because the white is underneath there, and the black was still pretty wet, it pretty much all came off. I'm going to touch that up with a little bit of my white first. And you wouldn't even know that that happened. Look at that. Okay? That's why, that's the reason I told you, don't do the dots until the last thing that you do, because that very easily can happen, and I do that quite often myself. So it was good that I could show you how to clean it up. So when it's dry, I mean, I'm kind of rushing it a little bit, but when it's dry, you can go back in with your pencil and draw that O again. And I'm going to try it again. See if I don't put this the wrong brush. I'll use this brush. It has a smaller handle. I like the handle on this one better. And take your time doing things. If you want to do the dots and put it aside, you can do that. You're not in a class where you have to rush and do it at the same time that I'm doing it. You can take your time. See, it worked out well that I could show you how to fix something too. All right, so I went back in and I did that. So now I'm going to remember, don't touch that. I'm going to put my finger in the bottom and hold it from the back now. And I'm going to do the dots. Let's see, with the green. I'm going to do the dots with the green and the purple going around the top. So I think I'm going to use the little bigger handle now. See, the handles of the brushes are both a little different. One's a little narrower, so I'm going to use the smaller brush, which has the narrower, the wider handle now. So we can't use the purple. I was going to use the purple. Can't use the purple, so I'll use white. I'll use white and green. So I'll do white first. And I'm going to try to leave a space so that I can go back in and put the green dots in between. Now you could do dots all over the hat if you want. Doesn't only have to be like a trim around here. I was trying to do it like a band on the hat. Okay, so those are the white dots that are done. I'll clean it off and go back in and do the green dots. Okay, see that? And I dip for every dot because I want it to be a nice sized dot. Okay, there we go, and I have to remember not to touch that. Okay, there you go. Oh, we have to do the eyes. Okay, I'm going to go back to the smaller handle, and I'm going to do the, I'll do it in the purples, but you can do it in the black if you have the black. And you're going to do, and if these eyes are too big for this handle of this brush, get a toothpick. A toothpick works out very well also, but I just did it with the back end of the brush, and I did it in the purple. So that's a very simple piece. Your lines in your mouth can also be done in black. Another trick to doing these is if you have a extra fine point marker in black, you can do your lines. If you have black, you could do black on the mouth and on the eyes, and you could do, if you have colored ones, you could use colored ones to do this. The only disadvantage of using the marker is if you spray it or seal it, sometimes the markers run. So if you wanted to put a gloss sealer on this, they have paint on gloss sealers, they have spray, you can buy in Walmart, Michael's. If you spray it first, then use the marker. Because if you have a hard time doing these fine lines, the marker works out really well also. So there he is. There's my first one. Here's my second one. Whoop. Stand up. See if I smeared those black lines again. Oh, I did. It fell down and I smeared them. So now I have to start all over again on that, but I won't bore you and let you watch me do that. Just try to be careful because you see what happens as soon as he fell over, I messed him up again. But I'm not going to take it off this time. I'm just going to go back in with my white and fill in with my white. So, all right. So enjoy painting the ceramics. Thank you for picking up the kits at the library. I appreciate you doing ceramics and enjoying it because it's been a passion all my life. So thank you very much and enjoy and happy Halloween.